They said 18 was grown. They said a man should carry his own weight. They said I was too heavy to love. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. I remember the door. Not the wood, not the handle, the sound, the clean final click that turned a home into a hallway. The air outside bit like teeth. My pockets were thin. My name was thinner. I had the shape of a son and the status of a stranger. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. Shame burns colder than winter. It doesn't warm you, it hollows you. People talk about the fire in their chest. Mine was a hole. Wind went through me. Words went through me. I wasn't a person. I was a gap where love should have stood. At 18, the streets have eyes. They stare. They measure. They weigh your bones for worth. I learned to walk like I owed nobody. I learned to swallow the tremble. I learned to nod at shop windows as if I had money and a plan. Lies make a backbone when the truth won't. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. Thrown into the cold like broken glass. That's what it felt like. Every step cutting, every breath cutting. And yet I kept moving, slicing my own hands just to survive. If you have never bled for a tomorrow, you don't know the price of your name. I ate silence. I bit down on it until my jaw ached. I spoke to the night because it didn't judge. I slept where the world forgot to look. A bus stop, a stairwell, a borrowed floor. The ceiling above me was always the same, white, cracked, and honest. It did not promise safety. It never lied. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. Anger came, like rain, soft at first, then constant, then a flood I could drown in, or learn to breathe beneath. I chose to learn. I chose to drink it, until it turned into something else, until it changed shape, until it sharpened. Do you know that moment, when the last soft hope dies? It's not loud. It's a small sound, like a thread snapping in a dark room. But after it breaks, the darkness sees you. It recognizes you, and in that darkness, you recognize yourself. I was no longer begging to be held. I was learning to hold myself. My hands were raw, my fingers cracked. I stitched my own worth with ugly thread. It held, because no one else touched it. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. I counted hours like coins. I worked where names didn't matter. I lifted boxes heavier than apologies. I mopped floors slick with other people's footsteps. I scrubbed away footprints like I was cleaning the map of how they walked over me. I learned the weight of small money. I learned how long hunger can sit quietly beside you and pretend to be a friend. Loneliness is a teacher with a blade. It trims away every soft lie. It leaves you with bone, and the truth of it. And the truth was simple. I had no one. I had only the echo of a room where love could have lived. I had the echo of my own voice saying, "Go on." They called me a burden. They called me nothing. I would talk to myself in reflections, shop windows, puddles, the black screen of a phone that wouldn't turn on. I would say, "Look at you. Look how you didn't disappear. Look how you're still here." Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes it wasn't. On the nights it wasn't. I promised a future that hadn't come yet. I promised a throne made of scars. I promised a crown forged from betrayal. I didn't know what those words meant. I only knew they tasted like survival. Listen, you who feel like a mistake, you who are told to move aside, you who learned the spell of staying quiet so no one hears your hurt. I have carried your silence. I know its weight. I know its music. It hums inside the ribs, low and relentless, the way machinery hums in factories that never close. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. But the cold makes iron. The wind carves stone. The night is a furnace. If you let it be, I placed my fear in that fire. I placed my shame. I placed my need to be chosen. I watched them redden, bend, change. When I pulled them out, they were tools, not pretty, not kind, useful. And still, the past kept speaking. One voice, two words, burden, nothing. I wore those words like a collar until they bit too deep, and then I tore them off with my teeth, blood on my tongue, iron in the taste. A promise bitter and pure. I was torn apart. I rebuilt, brick by brick, brick by brick, brick by brick. Not for applause, not for forgiveness, for distance, for height, for the view from a place they said I would never see. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. Hear me now. The wound is the architect. The pain is the blueprint. The exile is the door you build your house around. What they threw away, learn to throw skyward. What they named worthless, learn to name itself. And even here, at the beginning, with frost in my lungs and gravel in my shoes, I felt it, the smallest rise, the first inch of climb, the quiet oath underneath my breath that no one heard but me. I will not be their verdict. I will not be their echo. I will become the sentence they can never finish. Hunger is not just the emptiness in your stomach. It is the silence that gnaws your bones. It is the echo of words that will not die. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. And those words became a hunger deeper than any famine. Cheap rooms with walls that smelled of mold. Floors that groaned with every step, as if they carried the weight of ghosts. I slept there, not because I wanted to, because the world left me nowhere else to fall. I worked jobs that didn't know my name. Hands in grease, feet in mud, back bent under boxes heavier than shame. They didn't see me. They didn't care. And maybe that was the lesson. Why that invisibility can be a weapon if you learn how to wear it. Every paycheck was a bandage, not a cure. Enough to keep me alive. Never enough to silence the storm inside. But storms don't beg for silence. Storms grow. Storms wait. Storms learn to love the thunder in their own chest. I learned what hunger truly was. Not for food, not for shelter, but for power, for respect. For the moment when the same mouths that spat on me would choke on my name. Do you hear me? Do you feel it too? That ache in your stomach that never leaves? That itch in your veins that says you were made for more than this? That is hunger. That is the fire they tried to smother when they threw you out, when they called you worthless. Nights were longer than days. Time crawled like a wounded animal. Every shadow whispered, "Prove them wrong." Every silence screamed, "Rise." I was not just hungry. I was starving for vengeance. Starving for recognition. Starving for a place in a world that told me I deserved none. And in that starvation, I discovered a truth. Hunger is holy. Hunger is pure. Hunger does not lie. It does not flatter. It does not comfort. It sharpens. It carves. It forces you to grow fangs in the dark. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. So I swore I would make hunger my crown. I would wear emptiness as armor. I would turn desperation into fuel. Do you know what it means to wake before the sun? Not because you want to, but because the cold will not let you sleep. Do you know what it means to walk into a room and feel eyes slice through you as if your very existence is theft? Do you know what it means to work until your hands split, only to realize you are still one step away from ruin? I know. I lived it, and I would live it again. Because in those hours, I became something else. Not a victim, not a son, not a boy cast out. As I became the weapon my parents feared I could be, the shadow they thought would vanish, the silence they thought would stay silent. I drank hunger like poison, and it made me stronger. I swallowed loneliness like fire, and it lit my veins. Every insult was a stone. Every rejection was mortar. Every laugh at my expense was a brick. And without knowing it, they were building the walls of my empire for me. Listen, to those who stand in ruins now, to those who clutch their stomachs at night, wondering how much longer they can endure, do not curse your hunger. Do not fear it. It is not your enemy. It is your weapon. It is the beast that will bite until the world bleeds respect into your hands. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. But my hunger heard them. My hunger remembered. My hunger sharpened its teeth on their rejection. And one day that hunger would no longer whisper. It would roar. It would tear open the silence. It would announce to the world, I was never nothing. I was the famine they could not survive. That is where the spark was born. In the dirt, in the silence, in the shadows that told me to rise. And rise I did, not with food, not with love, not with comfort, but with hunger, pure, merciless, unrelenting hunger. Then hunger became my name. Hunger became my throne. Hunger became my destiny. They called me a burden. They called me nothing. But hunger called me something else. It called me inevitable. Ambition. That was the first real taste of blood that wasn't my own. I had lived on scraps. I had lived on silence. I had lived on the bitter taste of being forgotten. But hunger alone cannot carry a man forever. Hunger needs direction. Hunger needs a target. And one night, when the world was asleep, I found it, not in kindness, not in forgiveness, but in ambition. Each scar became a seed. Each rejection became a blade. I looked at my hands, torn, cracked, trembling. Once they were the hands of a boy reaching for love. Now they were the hands of a man reaching for conquest. There was no softness left in them. Only calluses. Only proof. Only the map of battles fought in silence. They told me I was nothing. So I asked myself, what is nothing, if not the perfect beginning? Nothing cannot be broken. Nothing cannot be taken away. Nothing can become anything. And so I chose to make myself into something they could never touch. I chose to carve a throne from the bones of my hunger. I chose to wear every insult like armor. Each scar became a seed. Each rejection became a blade. Do you know what ambition feels like when it first finds you? It's not a gentle hand. It sets a fire in your veins, a storm in your chest. It doesn't soothe you. It consumes you. It doesn't whisper. It commands. It says rise or burn. And I chose to rise. The world told me love was the highest prize. But love betrayed me. The world told me family was sacred. But family exiled me. The world told me to be humble, to be grateful, to be small. But humility starves, and gratitude bends the neck. I wanted none of it. Not their approval, not their embrace, not their pity. I wanted dominance. I wanted to be untouchable. I wanted to stand so high above them that even their shadows could not reach me. Each scar became a seed. Each rejection became a blade. And with those seeds, I planted an empire. With those blades I carved my destiny. Understand this. Betrayal does not destroy you. It forges you. It melts you down to raw metal and hammers you against stone until you spark. It burns away weakness, leaving only steel. And that steel is the crown. People fear pain. They run from it. They beg for comfort. But I made pain my ally. I made suffering my tutor. I made betrayal my blacksmith. Every time I remembered their faces smiling as they cast me out, I sharpened another blade. Every time I remembered their voices spitting the word burden, I planted another seed. And in the silence, in the shadows, in the long nights where no one clapped, no one cared, no one prayed for me, I grew, I sharpened, I burned. Each scar became a seed. Each rejection became a blade. Look at yourself. Look at the scars they gave you. Do you think they are just wounds? No, they are seeds waiting to break the soil. They are blades waiting to be drawn. They are proof that you are not fragile. You are forged. I stopped asking for love. I stopped searching for family. I stopped waiting for someone to save me. Because salvation is not given. Salvation is taken. Salvation is built. Salvation is bled for. And I bled. I bled until my veins ran fire instead of weakness. I bled until my name was no longer hollow. I bled until I could look at the sky and know what they abandoned had become inevitable. Each scar became a seed. Each rejection became a blade. I was no longer the boy they threw away. I was the weapon they created. I was the storm they unleashed. I was the fire they thought would die. And now that fire lives in my veins. Now that fire builds my empire. Now that fire burns in my crown. They will learn. They will kneel. They will choke on regret. Because ambition is not my escape. Ambition is my weapon. Ambition is my destiny. Ambition is the fire in my veins. They laughed when I said I would build. Of course they did. The boy who was thrown away at 18, standing with empty hands, daring to speak of empires. What else could they do but laugh? What else could they do but spit their doubt into my face and call it truth? They said you stole fail. They said you stir nothing. They said, the world eats men like you alive. And maybe they were right. Maybe the world did eat men like me alive. But I was not a man yet. I was hunger wearing skin. I was fire in veins that refused to cool. And I promised myself, if the world would eat me, then I would teach it to choke on the taste. The first steps were ugly. It's clumsy. I didn't yet have gold. I didn't yet have guidance. I had only grit. And grit is not pretty. It doesn't not polished. It doesn't just shine. It grinds. It scrapes. It claws. And that's what I did. I failed. Again. And again. And again. Doors slammed. Opportunities vanished. People smiled at me with pity, then turned their backs. But failure did not bury me. It buried the weak boy I used to be. And from that grave, something else rose. The world didn't hear the sound of my empire's birth. Empires are not born in cheers. They are born in silence, in scars, in shadows. While they mocked, I worked. While they doubted, I built. While they slept, I clawed another brick into place. Brick by brick, stone by stone, scar by scar. Do you know what it means to grind in the dark? To fight for hours, for days, for years, with no applause, no witness, no hand to steady you. It means you learn to be your own witness, your own applause, your own anchor. I was the architect. I was the laborer. I was the foundation and the storm that tested it. And still I built. Every rejection became mortar. Every insult became steel. Every betrayal became the hammer striking me into shape. My throne was built from scars. My crown was forged from betrayal. They thought an empire needed inheritance. They thought it needed blessing. They thought it needed approval. But empires are not handed down like gifts. They are stolen. They are seized. They are carved out of stone by those who have nothing left to lose. And I had nothing, which meant I had everything to gain. The world didn't hear the sound of my empire's birth, because the world only listens to noise. And I was silence. I was working when no one clapped. I was bleeding when no one cared. I was fighting when no one believed. That is how empires rise. Not in daylight, not in comfort, but in shadows, in blood, in hunger, in fire that does not go out. They mocked my vision. They called me delusional. They said I was chasing smoke, but smoke comes from fire, and fire comes from fuel, and I had enough fuel to burn the sky. Brick by brick, failure by failure, I built. The office was small at first, 4 walls and a desk that groaned louder than my bones. But it was mine, and when I sat there, when I looked at that empty room, I didn't see what was missing. I saw what was coming. I saw halls filled with voices whispering my name. I saw doors opening into worlds I would create. I saw the empire they would one day bow to. The world didn't hear the sound of my empire's birth. Empires are not born in cheers. They are born in silence, in scars, in shadows. Look at yourself. Look at the grind you hide from the world. Look at the hours you give when no one is watching. That is the sound of your empire being born. Not loud, not glamorous, but steady, relentless, unstoppable. I learned to love the silence, because silence means no one is watching. And if no one is watching, no one can stop you. They only see you when it gets done. They only see you when the throne is already built. By then it is too late. My throne was built from scars. My crown was forged from betrayal. And every brick of my empire carries the weight of their doubt. Every wall sings with the echo of their laughter, sealed inside, trapped forever. Do you understand now? The rise was never a question. The rise was destiny. Because when you build from nothing, you build something they can never take away. I was not given this empire. I did not inherit it. I bled for it. I carved it out of the silence they left me in. And when it rose, when it stood unshakable, when it towered above the ruins of their words, the world had no choice but to look up. Empires are not born in cheers. They are born in silence, in scars, in shadows, and in that silence, I became inevitable. They told me I was a burden. They told me I was nothing. They pushed me out into the cold and let the world devour me. And for years, I carried their voices like chains, heavy around my neck. But chains rust. Chains break. Chains become weapons. And when my empire rose, when the walls stood tall and the gates gleamed with iron, they came. Yes, they came. The very ones who once called me worthless, who spat me out like poison, who swore I would rot in the dirt. They came, and they stood in line, not as parents, not as rulers of my fate, but as beggars at the gates of the empire they never believed I could build. The same hands that pushed me away now stretch out, begging. The same voices that cursed my name now tremble as they whisper it with need. The same eyes that rolled in disdain now lower, unable to meet mine. Do you see it? The circle, the justice, the cruelty that tastes sweeter than honey. This is revenge, not carved in blood, but in power. Not through their death, but through their survival. Because survival means watching me reign. Survival means standing in my shadow. Survival means knowing the child they threw away became the master of their hunger. They said you will fail, and now they kneel, desperate to serve. They said you'll never make it, and now they beg for a place inside what I made. They said, you are nothing, and now they stand before me, hands trembling, because my nothing is the only thing that can save them. The same hands that pushed me away now stretch out, begging. Their faces, do you know what they looked like? Hollow, broken, eyes wet with regret, but too proud to name it. Mouths twitching, caught between begging and choking on their own pride. It was almost beautiful, like watching statues crumble stone by stone until the truth inside was exposed. And I stood still, not as their son, not as their child, but as the emperor they created with their cruelty. I did not need their love. I did not need their approval. I needed only this moment. The same hands that pushed me away now stretch out, begging. This is the justice they never expected. Not fire, not sword, not destruction, but silence. The silence of me standing above them, watching them crawl. The silence of their pride collapsing under the weight of my success. I wanted them to feel what I felt. The exile, the hunger, the endless silence of being nothing. And now they feel it, because when you beg at the gates of the empire you doubted you are nothing. And nothing is all they left me with. Nothing is what they have returned to. Listen to me. This is how the world turns. They will doubt you. They will discard you. They will call you worthless. But when you rise, when you build, when you make yourself into something they cannot deny, they will return. They will come back, not with crowns, not with pride, but with open hands. And you must decide. Do you give them mercy? Do you give them forgiveness? Or do you give them silence? The same hands that pushed me away now stretch out, begging. And I let them beg. I let them feel the weight of waiting. Because the cruelest revenge is not vengeance. It is victory. It is standing so high above them that their words cannot reach you. It is making them live long enough to bow. Their eyes lowered, their voices trembling. The same lips that cursed, now begging. This is power. This is justice. This is the return. And when they stood there, broken and silent, in my line of the forgotten, I knew the tables had turned forever. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. This is the throne they swore. I sit, never touch. This is the crown they swore I'd never wear. And yet look at me now. I was the silence they ignored. I am the empire they now serve. My throne is not carved from gold. It is carved from scars. Every wound they left in me became stone beneath my feet. Every insult became mortar that bound my walls together. Every betrayal became a pillar that holds my empire high. I sit on pain. I sit on rejection. I sit on the bones of their doubt. And still, it is higher, stronger, greater than anything they could have built. My crown does not shine with jewels. It burns with fire. Fire stolen from the nights I froze in exile. Fire born from the rage they poured into my veins. Fire that blazes brighter than their pride, hotter than their hate. This crown is not given. It is forged. Forged in shadows. Forged in silence. Forged in every moment. They thought I would disappear. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. They see me now and call me ruthless. They see me now and call me cruel. Do they not understand? Cruelty was their gift to me. Cruelty was the cradle I was thrown into. Cruelty was the hand that shaped me into this. I am not the villain they imagine. I am the villain they created. I am not their nightmare. I am their reflection. I was the silence they ignored. I am the empire they now serve. My empire is not lit by sunlight. It is lit by shadows. Shadows of the nights I walked alone. Shadows of the rooms where I planned in silence. Shadows of the ghosts who whispered, "Rise." And those ghosts, they live with me still. They rule beside me. They sit at my table. They are the reminders of what it cost. The reminders of what I became. The dead rule the living through me. I was once nothing, but nothing is the perfect soil. Nothing grows roots deeper than the earth itself. Nothing births everything, and from that, nothing, I built this. From that nothing, I became this. Look at me. Look at the throne, built from scars. Look at the crown forged from betrayal. Look at the empire that rose in silence. Do you feel the weight of it pressing down on you? Do you feel the fire burning against your skin? Do you feel the ghosts circling, whispering my name? Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. They said I would not last, but I have lasted longer than their lies. They said I would break, but I bent until I became unbreakable. They said I was nothing, and yet now I am everything they fear, everything they envy, everything they kneel before. I was the silence they ignored. I am the empire they now serve. This is not revenge. This is not justice. This is dominion. This is the storm they unleashed, crowned in fire. This is the shadow they tried to bury, now ruling the light. This is the voice they silenced, now echoing louder than their prayers. Do you hear it? Do you feel it? The sound of their knees striking the floor. The sound of their pride cracking like glass. The sound of regret filling their throats until they choke. Let them beg. Let them crawl. Let them choke on regret. For I am no longer their son. I am no longer their burden. I am no longer their nothing. I am the throne. I am the crown. I am the empire. I was the silence they ignored. I am the empire they now serve. From nothing to everything. For years I thought revenge was the prize. I thought watching them crawl would be enough. I thought their regret would quench the fire inside me. But regret fades. Tears dry. Voices fall silent. And when they finally bowed, when they finally begged, I felt it. The truth. It was never about them. Not anymore. They were the spark. Yes. They were the wound. Yes. But the fire that rose from that wound burned far beyond their shadows. What I built was not for their eyes. It was for eternity. From nothing to everything. My empire is not theirs to touch, not theirs to claim. It belongs to the silence that raised me. It belongs to the hunger that carved me. It belongs to the scars that became seeds, tied to the rejections that became blades. I am no longer chasing love. I am no longer chasing approval. I am no longer chasing forgiveness, because power does not chase. Power stands still, and the world moves around it. From nothing to everything. Do you understand? The cruelest revenge is not in their pain. It is in my permanence. It is in the truth that when they are gone, when their names are forgotten, when their bones are dust, mine will remain. Mine will echo. Mine will live. I was the ghost they buried. Now I am the empire they bow to. Not just them. Not just the ones who doubted, but all who ever believed I was nothing. all who ever turned their backs, all who thought silence meant defeat. I am carved into stone. I am written into time. I am the storm that does not pass. I am the shadow that does not fade. From nothing to everything. And you who hear these words, you who carry scars, you who were told you were nothing, remember this. Your scars are not chains. They are seeds. Your rejections are not curses. They are blades. Then when the world throws you into the ground, you know this. They are not burying you. They are planting you from nothing to everything. I was the ghost they buried. Now I am the empire they bow to. And when the world goes silent, when the fire fades, when even the stars grow cold, my name will remain, unforgiven, unforgotten, eternal.